In chapter 16, we're looking at victims of cybercrime, and a lot of this we've actually covered in some of our other chapters, so this is kind of repeat information. But when we're talking about cybercrime, we're talking about any illegal activity conducted through a computer or now a handheld device. When it comes to the scope of the problem, an estimated 15.4 million Americans, and that was about 1 in 16 adults, were victims of identity theft in 2016, totaling about losses of about $16 billion. In a 2016 study, 47% of American internet users reported having experienced some type of online harassment or abuse, including physical threats, cyberstalking, name calling, impersonation, hacking, denial of access to online platform, etc. In a study of 5,700 U.S. school children, researchers found that 33% reported being bullying online. This is just giving you the scope of the problem of different types of issues with the internet or any online platform. In 2016, NATO warded off an average of 500 cyber attacks per month that warranted a response. And a 2015 survey of 58 U.S. organizations that had experienced cyber attacks in that year found that 97% have been subject to a malware attack. Malware is typically done through emails where you click on something or you click on a link in an email and it brings spyware or malware into your computer, and then the hackers can actually access your computer. 3,600 individuals were arrested in the United States in 2006 for possession of child pornography that was distributed on the internet. So that's some of the scope of the problem here in the United States with cybercrime. Agencies responsible for internet crime in the United States. Now, this is really the legal context is interesting and actually very difficult because there are boundary issues. A lot of the attacks are originated outside the borders of the United States. And that makes tracking them very difficult, finding IP addresses difficult, and prosecuting very difficult. But agencies responsible in the United States for hacking, we have the FBI, and that would be your local office, and the U.S. Secret Service. Password trafficking, again, the local office of the FBI and Secret Service. Child pornography and child exploitation, again, the FBI local office, and U.S. Customs and Immigration Enforcement, also with sex trafficking as well. Internet fraud and spam, FBI, U.S. Secret Service, and that would be the Financial Crimes Division, the Federal Trade Commission, and the Securities and Exchange Commission. Internet harassment, your FBI local office. Internet bomb threats, trafficking in firearms, that would be the local FBI office, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Copyright, FBI, and U.S. Customs and Immigration Enforcement. Ransomware, FBI, and theft of trade secrets and economic espionage, FBI. We also have, of course, state and local officials who are trying to handle this as well. So not only federal response, but we have state and local officials. Types of internet crime, and these are some of the things that we have already talked about. So hacking is breaking into somebody's computer. Cyberterrorism is using some type of electronic means to instill fear in other people. Cyberbullying, we've talked about, that's using some type of technology, social media platforms to be aggressive towards other people, to call them names, any type of bullying that is done online. We talked about child sexual exploitation on the internet. That includes child pornography on the internet and also enticing young people on the internet, cyberstalking, internet fraud, and identity theft. So hacking is unauthorized access of a computer or network. Software for hacking is readily available and easily downloadable. There are a lot of software packages that allow you to send spyware to a computer. Internet hackers are incredibly innovative, and they're one step ahead of law enforcement, generally speaking, in terms of the technology. And how they get people is, and you've all experienced this, is they send emails that look real. People click on those links, and once they click on it, that person has now hacked into your computer. They also will send links, malware, spyware, phishing emails to get people to click on links and then put in their personal information. So your passwords, for example, or your the code, your banking codes, things like that. Hacking is huge losses to corporations. We've all heard of organizations like Target who were hacked and they got into people's credit card information. The motivation, thrill, and excitement, but the vast majority of the time it is for money. Also, challenge about smarting corporations, recognition through social media, power, vengeance, anger, political, but usually it is a financial motive as well. Cyberterrorism, again, using any type of computer network or any type of technology to intimidate or coerce governments, organizations, individuals for a particular political motivation. The anonymity of the internet that we talked about for cyberbullying is the same thing for cyberterrorism. The anonymity allows gathering of information, creating communication networks, collaborating without detections because people can hide behind false passwords, you can create all kinds of different email addresses. You can create false identities on social media. It is a means for distributing horrifying messages to vast populations that instill fear and helplessness. We saw this with some of the Middle East conflict using videos, posting videos online, posting videos on YouTube to instill fear in people, helplessness. ISIS was incredibly good at this, using using videos of beheading people and posting those online to distribute fear and really making people feel helpless, like we had, like we couldn't do anything about it. We couldn't trace the offenders. We couldn't trace where the videos were coming from. Cyberbullying, we talked about cyberbullying in a previous chapter. It is habitual and aggressive. It includes things like rumors through emails, websites, posting embarrassing or compromising photos posted online. We talked about that with sexting and how that can go wrong when other people get those pictures, modified pornographic pictures. Again, you think you're sending it to one person and they're sending it to other people and then they're posting it. Bullies tend to have academic problems, poor psychological adjustment, and later delinquency, and that includes face-to-face bullies or those who use cyberbullying techniques. Those who are bullied, we talked about that, the problems with this. It can lead to depression, anxiety, eating disorders, problems with school, not wanting to go to school, not wanting to use the internet. Not wanting to hang out with your friends, and suicidal ideation, and even actual suicides. Child sex exploitation on the internet. Again, we talked about that. Estimates out there suggest that there are probably 14 million pornographic websites. So some posting more than 1 million child abuse images. The laws now with images on the internet they don't have to be just actual pictures. Now the laws, child pornography can be drawings or any depiction of children as well. It does tend to be addictive and progressive. Internet photos used for sexual gratification, to support beliefs about the acceptability of adult-child relations, to lower inhibitions of victims, and to entrap and control victims. There is a lot, as we talked about already, child luring through the internet, developing relationships with kids who are vulnerable, or posing yourself as a young person. We've all seen the television show on MTV, Catfish, where people use photos that they've stolen off the internet to create fake profiles, and adults do this as well. They steal images of young people, create a fake profile, and then lure through children through those means. 2016, the FBI took over the world's largest child pornography site, Playpen. It's really difficult for the FBI and other organizations to kind of track where these photographs are coming from. Again, because the offenders are really good with technology and one step ahead. They're changing IP addresses, they're bouncing things around. So when they're trying to track where a photo originated from or where it was posted from, it's all over the world and they can't trace it very well. And then if they can find it, there are always jurisdictional issues and whether or not that country of origin is willing to work with the United States. Cyberstalking, we talked about cyberstalking. It is, any unwanted contact through cyber means, through technology. So that is unwanted emails, unwanted texts, unwanted posts on social media sites, unwanted unwanted instant messaging, any unwanted contact that's done with technology. The recommendations of the Attorney General for cyberstalking: states should review and expand laws to address cyberstalking. So remember, we talked about how all 50 states have anti-stalking laws, and the Attorney General has suggested that all states need to expand those out to include now cyberstalking. Federal laws should be amended to prohibit the transmission of threatening communication. Law enforcement agencies should acquire training on the extent of cyberstalking and take it seriously. Internet industry should create an industry-supported website containing information about cyberstalking. In terms of prevention, we should all be very careful when we're online. So to prevent cyberstalking, keep your primary email address private. Do not assume that any transaction on the internet is confidential. Be very careful with that. Choose online names with care. Create strong passwords and frequently change them. Do not give your passwords out to other people. Do not fill out online profiles or use privacy settings on your online accounts to limit your online sharing. Watch what you say online. Avoid sharing where you plan to be and when. This is the checkout or the check-in feature on Facebook or Instagram or any other social site that allows you to check in, to say where you are at that very moment. Maybe not use the feature that says where you are at, what city you're at, what restaurant you're at, if you're going to post photos, or post them after you've already left that place. I actually just got back from vacation on the beach, and I didn't post any pictures while I was there. And when I got home, I did post a couple of pictures, and I did not say what beach I was at, just trying to be very careful. Avoid chat rooms. Use firewalls and antivirus protection on all of your devices. Log out of your computer and mobile programs when you stay away from these devices, and monitor the physical safety, the physical access of these devices. A lot of times we might, for example, my home computer, if you just log into it, you can get into my Facebook account very easily just by clicking on the picture. But there's nobody that has access to my home. But if somebody broke into my home, the good thing is my computer has software that has to recognize my face. And most of us have that now on our phones and on our computers. So that's really good security. Notify the internet provider from which the harassing email originates if you do get some. Save all harassing communications. In a neutral manner, inform the harasser that the communication is unwanted. Do not have further contact or block them on all social media platforms. Contact the police. And if you suspect the use of spyware software on your computer, use only public computers or telephones to get help. The other thing you might want to do is to cover up the camera on your laptop or your desktop. There are some programs that get into your computer and take over your camera. So anytime that your computer is on, they can see what you're doing or what's happening in your room. So a lot of people put tape over that. So be very mindful of the fact that we all have cameras on our home computers and our laptops. Internet fraud: purposeful, unlawful act to deceive, manipulate, or provide false statements intentionally, depriving victims of something of value, generally money or property. In 2016, 6.15% of consumers were victims of identity fraud, an increase of more than 2 million people from 2015. With identity fraud, that is somebody stealing some type of information of yours to create a false identity in your name. So that's what identity theft is. So they get your name, your social security number, your driver's license number, and then they go open up bank accounts in using your information. So very careful with things like that. And there's newer ways that this type of technology is used for identity theft. My husband was at a gas station last summer, at a Shell gas station, and we all know that they have the pads right out on the gas pumps. He slid his card, got gas, and went about his business. And an hour later, he got an email from his credit card company saying that his credit card was being used in a mall, and he never goes to malls, so it was a red flag. Anyway, they had a capture on that box that he slid his card on. They captured his credit card information, and within an hour, were able to make a fake credit card and go use it in a mall. So it's really incredible and scary what can be done with technology. So again, anytime we're talking about identity theft, we're talking about stealing your information. This is why you need to be very careful online. A lot of times if we go on, for example, Facebook, people have their maiden name listed, people have their birth date listed. There was kind of a trend going on recently where people were posting their high school graduation photos. So now you have their date of graduation. And that is the type of information that can be used to steal your identity. In 2014, 17.6 million people, or 7% of all households in the United States, had been victims of some type of identity theft, like my husband was stealing the credit card information, unauthorized use of credit cards, unauthorized use of bank accounts, misuse of personal information. All of those would be examples of identity theft. And again, the technology of the offenders is just one step ahead of law enforcement. The good news is that you can sign up with your credit card companies to notify you if something odd is being done. We all have now apps that we can use on our phones to look at our credit card information to see if it is being used. We can turn off the credit card if we see that if there are charges that don't look right. So, I mean, the good news is we do have tools now that we didn't have, 10 years ago, that can allow us to kind of see what's going on and take steps if we need to. But be very careful with any information that you're posting online, and with storing things like credit card numbers or bank account information on websites. All right, when it comes to use of stolen identities, credit card fraud, they use your credit card information to open new credit card accounts and then clone, like the example that I just told you about with my husband, his existing credit card. Phone or utilities fraud, opening new accounts, renting property or other items in the victim's name. Banking frauds, creating counterfeit checks, opening new accounts, cloning ATM cards, emptying the account, taking out a loan in the victim's name. Government document fraud, getting a driver's license or other official identification in the victim's name, using the victim's social security number to obtain benefits, filing a fraudulent tax return. Obtaining employment with a social security number, obtaining medical care with victim's health insurance information, giving false information at the time of arrest. Another thing that offenders do, by the way, is look at death notices, and they look at somebody's obituary to see that they died, and then use their name to open up accounts, and that type of. So they're really creative in getting people's information. Internet copyright piracy. We all have to be very careful with using information on the internet. There are copyright laws to information on the internet. As somebody that teaches like me, I have to be very careful. I can't just copy and paste information. I usually provide links to information, but the internet provides new opportunities and challenges for the distribution of materials. In 2004, the U.S. Department of Justice launched the Task Force on Intellectual Property that really looks at what is intellectual property and how do we enforce violations of intellectual property. In 2010, became the Intellectual Property IP Task Force. And the task force addresses crimes related to copyright, trademarks, trade secrets, patents, really looking, and these are for big cases, not somebody, who just accidentally, borrows, thinks they're borrowing something and then, copies and paste. But they're looking at big violations. But all of us need to be very careful with intellectual property on the internet, especially students. I do have a lot of students who copy and paste information into discussion questions or into papers. You cannot do that. You need to paraphrase the information or put quote marks, and then you need to cite the source of that information if it is from a website. It's always best to just paraphrase and then cite the internet page. We all need to be very careful with intellectual property on the internet. All right, if you have any questions about anything in this chapter, of course, let me know. Otherwise, have a great rest of the day.